Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue with the seventh evidence in Islam, as in how do we derive al-ahkam al-fiqhiyya, like how do we derive rulings in Islam? What process are we going to use? What evidence are we going to use? Today we're talking about the seventh one, which is urf, custom. And this is really quite interesting because we have our own customs living in where we live, and everybody does always. There's certain things that we take for granted that we think is normal. It might not necessarily be normal everywhere. So the definition and types of urf and the differences between urf and ijma'. So al-urf means custom, and it applies to whatever is normalized in a particular society. Is that different than ijma'? Yes, it is. Why? Because al-ijma' is used for the consensus, not just the majority, the consensus, yani all of the scholars, not masses, not Muslims, scholars, on a religious issue. You know, they're not giving, rulings on, I don't know, medicine or this, that. These are scholars. They only stick to their field. So it has to be consensus of scholars, Muslim scholars, on a religious issue. Whereas urf is used for the majority, not necessarily consensus, not everybody, but the majority of people, and again, not scholars, but just random, regular people on any particular issue, and that's what we call customary in our society. That's the way we do things, quote unquote, right? That's just normal amongst us. Three ways to divide up this concept of urf. We have the first, second, and third way. So the first way is what? Al-urf al-amali, al-urf al-qawli. What is the difference between the two? So al-urf al-amali, an example of it, amal means action, by the way. So al-urf al-amali means a custom based on actions, based on your practice. When the buyer grabs an item from a store and gives the seller the cash and nobody speaks. We all know that a transaction is valid when there is al-ijab wal-qubul. I am offering $5 for this, I don't know, watermelon, right? Whatever. Yes, I accept. It's supposed to be al-ijab wal-qubul. But what if the guy just picks up a watermelon, drops $5 on the table and walks out? Nobody said a word. Oh my God, haram. Not haram. Why? Al-urf yani. We know. He's buying the thing. He paid for it. No, nothing needed to be said. We all got the point. Everybody gets it? So nobody can walk back and say, they didn't do al-ijab wal-qubul, haram, yani get the police, that man stole that watermelon, he just happened to drop $5 and it was a weird coincidence. Like, no, none of that works. The guy did nothing wrong. It's urf, it's natural. This is called bay'ul mu'ata, sorry. How long someone is supposed to stay in a public shower? We talked about this before. You know, if you go to the YMCA or any sort of gym, you're supposed to have about I don't know, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You know, if you stay in there all day, they're probably going to kick you out. You say, hey, you never gave a time limit. Urf. Just be a decent human being, get out of here, right? So the next one is al-urf al-qawli. People using the term walad for boy and not girl, despite the fact that it can be used for both, right? So, I don't know, today is my day to see the kids. Okay, who are you gonna bring? Walad. And then, I don't know, let's say there's divorce or something. I'm just making it up off the top of my head. Let's say there's a divorce case and they share custody with the kids, and one time they bring the boy, one time they bring the girl, and they change the parents, right? And one day I'll bring the walad. Oh, you brought the girl. Today was my day with the boy. I said walad, technically it could mean the girl. I mean, that's linguistically. Nobody talks like that, Nobody talks like that. You're playing a game. So urf plays, so if they went to court and said, on the phone, she told me that she was gonna bring me my walad. And she brought me the girl. Oh, yeah, Qadi, excuse me, Mr. Judge, technically that's okay. You know how we use language, even though it's technically true, that's not the way we talk. You're playing games just to make things difficult, which unfortunately in divorce cases, you often find people do stuff like this. They play ridiculous games to punish the other person for, not having a proper family relationship. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. People not using the term lahm for fish. You could, I guess, technically say lahm, meat, the meat of a fish, but that's not how we use that term. People using the term dabba for a riding, which means technically a riding animal, but for a horse exclusively. You can imagine, like 1,000 years ago, I got a good price for this dabba. Really? Okay, is it beautiful? Yeah, it's a beautiful, healthy dabba. Perfect. He brings the money, he gives it, he gets, this is a mule. Well, I said dabba, technically that means a riding animal. Habibi, we only use it for the term horse. Like, that's the way we use it. You're playing games, right? And same thing, saying to your wife, you are haram for me, implying divorce. This is something that was understood at that time. This isn't the way we use things. That's not necessarily our custom, but we're just looking at their custom at certain times and places. Moving on. The second way to divide this concept of urf is al-urf al-am versus al-urf al-khas. So a custom is widespread in many areas, whereas maybe something just customary in your particular city, a custom that's only accepted in a specific country, district, village, etc. And the third way of dividing it up is al-urf al-sahih and al-urf al-fasid. Sahih meaning valid, and fasid meaning corrupt. So any custom that doesn't make halal haram, or nor does it make haram halal, therefore that is urf sahih, right? As long as we're following customs that does not violate the sharia, making something haram that is halal or halal that is haram, then you are good to go. However, al-urf al-fasid is any custom that does make halal haram, nor does it make haram halal. Did I say that right or say that backwards? I think I said it right. Anyway, you guys get my point, right? Good. Just wondering if I'm saying it correct. Tayyib, you get the point. Basically, it can't oppose the sharia. Pretty straightforward. Tayyib, let's move on. What is the authority of urf? Al-urf al-fasid is obviously rejected. If it opposes the sharia, it's rejected. However, urf sahih is considered a ruling. It's part of our deen. In fact, there is a legal maxim, a qaida fiqhiyya that says al-aada muhakkama. Custom is authoritative. You might say, really? It's authoritative? Absolutely. And we have some examples here. To make sure that there's compatibility between two people that want to get married, you'll have to figure out what's considered standard in society, right? What is standard for a young man to get a job, to have an income, right? Is that going to make you compatible for this girl, right? She's living in this society that has a certain standard. We're expecting to have a 6-figure salary. I don't know, whatever the case is, right? That's part of custom, right? You know, change places, change areas, change countries or times. So maybe, you know, the price, how much you're making, or where you live, or how expensive your home is. All these things can change based on urf. Urf isn't used to make rulings independently. Rather, it specifies the generalities of the sharia. For example, in general, the man is the leader of the household and the woman takes care of the home and the kids. This is general. However, how much the man is expected to participate in the household chores will heavily depend on the customs of a people if you want to get specific. So you guys can imagine, there's a divorce case. Two people come to the qadi, the judge, and they're, you know, arguing their case. He's not a good husband. Well, she's not a good wife. Well, back and forth. They're, you know, getting mad at each other, saying all these problems. How do I know? How can I tell if this guy is a bad husband or if the girl's a bad wife? How do I know? Well, what is customary? Do you at least do the dishes? Do you help out around the house? You know, maybe in some cultures, a man never changes a diaper. Versus in some cultures, oh, come on, Habib, you got to help out with the diapers a little bit, you know? You get my point. So these things are going to vary based on urf, whether the judge can judge and say that you are either a good or bad based on custom. These things are relevant. If somebody says, I'll sell you a house for a very good price, and the person buys it, it is expected that the house has a roof. Pretty funny, right? I just said house. I never specified. So if it doesn't, then the seller has deceived the buyer. How? Lying by omission. Why was it expected? Custom. A house customarily has a roof. Seems pretty obvious, but things like this happen, right? I never said it didn't have. I never mentioned the house. I never mentioned the roof. I just said house. Technically, it's a house. Yeah, but it's raining, you know? It doesn't make any sense. And when a store sells an appliance and the appliance breaks down immediately, the custom is that the buyer can return it for a new one or for repairs or for their money back. This is custom. And so obviously judges are going to take these things into consideration. So this, I hope you see how important this is. Another one that I didn't mention is Mahr. This is a big one. You know, we deal with marriages all the time, and families often, not often, but every once in a while becomes a big sort of fight. You know, how much money is she going to get for the mahr? Some families like, I want so much, and some families like, that's too much, and it goes back and forth. And by the way, this is part of the wisdom of Islam. Just because a guy and a girl like each other, even love each other, doesn't mean they actually know how they deal with money. That's a really big step to discover before you actually get married. Oh, we like the same things, and we make each other laugh, and you know, oh, alhamdulillah, we both practice our deen. Everything seems great. The moment money gets involved, it's like, wow, this person's really cheap. This person's really, you know, what's it called? Wasteful. This person's really demanding. You start to discover there's a whole new paradigm that you have to discover. So Allah Ta'ala made it an injunction. You guys have to do at least one financial transaction before you get married. Figure out how much you're going to pay for the mahr. You guys get the wisdom? It's subhanAllah, it's so deep. How many marriages from before they got married discovered that they couldn't stand each other, and the family, not just the married couple, but even the families discovered how terrible each other were or how much they disliked each other because they did one financial transaction together and discovered this is not a good idea. So this is Allah Ta'ala saving, you know, from marriage and then children and then divorce and then all sorts of problems. No, save it all from the beginning. So then the question comes, well, how much is a decent mahr? And the answer is, well, what is the urf? You know, if a sister comes to me and says, well, how much should I ask for? I'd say, well, I don't know. What about your cousins? What about your sister? What about your, you know what I mean? What about your friends? How much do they ask for? I'm not going to give her a set number. I'd feel a little awkward doing so. So I'm going to check with the urf. So I hope that makes all sense. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, I hope you guys have learned something. Barakallahu fikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.